through like really he's a believer, really through tears said, "Hey, we know what impacts your giving more than anything else, and you've just proven the power of prayer, because what he said impacts giving more than anything else is praying every day for at least 30 people in the app, not 30 people for their giving, just 30 people who have asked for prayer in their app."
Welcome to Church 3.0, presented by Apollos, a podcast where we explore the nuances of modern Christian culture and the challenges of cultivating community while maintaining impact and relevance in the church. Join Tyler Vance, COO of Apollos, as he talks to church leaders from around the world to gain a deeper understanding of the Christian faith in a modern context. Push boundaries, change lives, create a more hopeful future.
Hey, welcome today, guys. We've got a super special guest with us. Darin Yates from Crossroads Church is joining us, and we're actually on site at Crossroads Church. And so I just wanted you guys to be able to hear some of the wisdom behind some of the really strategic decisions that have shaped the technology of Crossroads Church and really building out some of the front-running apps in the church space that we see today. So, Darin, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I can't promise wisdom. I can give you opinions.
Well, wisdom is age, right? And you have that.
I have age. Thank you. Yeah, I do. I do have age.
Okay, thank you for that. You've been at Crossroads for over 20 years now.
22.
How has technology, obviously 22 years ago, you guys probably weren't leaning a lot into technology.
Well, we were. It just was different technology.
Okay.
From the beginning, the largest investment we made 28 years ago when we launched was into a projector so we could do PowerPoint. And then shortly thereafter, we started giving away tapes for free, cassette tapes for free, a little please distribute on there. And we would give away, you coming out of the service and you're immediately getting a tape of what you just heard.
No
of
way.
The message you just heard. And the value in that for us was that people would just hand it to people. And in fact, the cassette tapes was Chuck Mingo, who's one of our teaching pastors, his first exposure to Crossroads, because his family would mail him a tape. And then tapes went to CDs.
Yeah.
And same thing. We had a room downstairs. We're just pumping out 2,000 of them, 3,000 a week. And Kyle Ranson, our teaching pastor, or our lead pastor, was introduced through CDs. His family would send him down to Atlanta, and he was introduced to Crossroads through CDs. And so ultimately they went to streaming and ultimately into mobile and beyond. But it was always what we were trying to do is use tools that people would be comfortable with to share the gospel.
Yeah. That is, I actually didn't know that about Crossroads, so thank you for sharing that. That's fascinating. The DNA of using technology to share the gospel is a through line with Crossroads. And you just talked about how that's changed over the years. What are you guys leaning into in this current season? And then my follow-up question is going to be like, what do you dream of for the future? What do you have your ear to the ground for? So what's the current season look like for you guys?
Well, I think, I'm gonna dial it back a little bit and give you a little bit of history before I move it forward and tell you where we're at now. I think in 2015, we did a campaign, and it really launched us into the digital world, and we went forward with a new website, a new app. And at the time, I'd stand in front of our staff, and I'd say, this is a church. This is anything that we can do to engage with the church in a building, we can do here.
Yeah.
And so we're going to create an app, and we're going to create a digital platform where anyone, anywhere can be a part of the church.
Yeah.
And that was stupid. That was wrong. It was right in vision, but it was wrong in concept in the way we did it in practice, because you don't want to try to duplicate what you do in a room in digital. You want to enhance what you do in a room with digital and enhance what you do in digital in room. And so what we missed in that first part is we were trying to create a church.
Yeah.
And mainly because buildings are so expensive and we were growing so fast we couldn't keep up.
Sure.
That finally it's kind of more evolved into digital is a discipleship tool. And it is a way to interact and engage with your church every day, and really, frankly, as often as you want. And whether it's prayer or scripture or community or whatever it may be, it just expands the ways that we as a church, we as the people of the church, can connect and engage.
Yeah.
And so the deeper that we can get that, is how we see moving forward with the technology. And so using it as a tool for discipleship and for the church, then where we're going with our tools, our app or our website or whatever, is where we're going as a church. And so where we're going as a church is we're trying to go a little deeper or a lot deeper into a culture of prayer. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we use our app to get deeper in prayer? How do we get our website to get deeper in prayer? How do we get our day-to-day meetings and our day-to-day activities deeper in prayer? And so a couple of years ago it was hey, this year we want to get our entire church engaged in Scripture daily. And so it's the year of the Bible, and so then we really went deep dive into the app and the Bible. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is, I mean, you talk about the significant church initiatives that you guys are a part of are all initiatives that you follow up immediately with. That's an enhanced experience digitally. Yeah. Or whatever we're designing digitally will enhance that experience in the room of the weekend.
Right.
Like, so they're both tied completely together. Would you say that digital experiences are cornerstone or core functions of Crossroads Church?
Yeah, definitely now. I mean, digital elements early on in the life of the church was more enhancements of what we believe the core of the church was. And we used to say main stage is the main thing.
Sure.
And for years we said main stage is the main thing. Well, main stage is the main thing is 1 hour a week. And so we would try to enhance that with the best technology, the best music, the best audio, the best video, whatever it may be. And we still are trying to do that.
Sure.
And that being said, we were trying to be a tracked model, draw people into a service, particularly an hour a week. And if we could get 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, we would love that.
Yeah.
But it was primarily come to us as the church.
Yeah.
And now with digital, is our church can go with you.
Mm.
And your church is constantly with you. And so it's just a different perspective. And that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah. That's where do you see the gap? I talk to a lot of other pastors that I think conceptually don't disagree with you, but in practice, their budgets don't align with that, and their staff headcount decisions don't align with that.
Right.
And I mean, even to get really in, the business of others, like the people sitting at their leadership table don't reflect that.
Yeah, and particularly senior pastors.
Sure.
And churches are slow to change. I think that's historically been true. I think that what's interesting to me in this whole concept is the pastors want to see their primary thing that drove them to the point they are right now, which is generally teaching.
Yeah.
They want teaching to be played in other places so that people homebound or whatever can engage with it.
Yeah.
And it's a mind shift for people to understand that digital is not just a version where you can get to teaching. You can extend your reach. It's actually where you can extend your influence. It's where you can extend your engagement and get more and more people involved. I think the power in it is when you start seeing it work.
Yeah.
We just went through a financial campaign, and I sit in a place where I see where these commitments are coming in, and you see a family in New Mexico or a family in Florida that are just as engaged and just as committed as anybody. We see 50% of our new accounts, which is really for us, we don't have membership. Yeah. And so for us, a new account subscribing to our website or registering for the app is when somebody says, I want to know you and I want to be known. Mm-hmm. And so 50% of those people are coming through online now. And 50% of our new gifts are coming from online now. And so it's a reach tool. And a lot of those people live within miles of a building. Yeah. It's just, this is the way they're entering. It's the back of the dark auditorium.
Well, you talk about specifically like app registrations or website, like that is the way that people become known today, right? Like profile creation is the equivalent of the back of the seat communication card,
the Connect
from
card.
From 10 years ago.
Right.
And what we're seeing in our ecosystem is on average 100 to 150 of those new every week in the clients that we have.
Right. We're about 350 a week.
Yeah.
And so when you factor that out, that's a mega church a month. Now the question is, how do you keep them? Yes. How do you keep them engaged, and how do you keep them coming back for more, right?
Yeah, and I think digital gives us the opportunity to create known people faster than we ever have. Mm-hmm. But it also comes with the burden to connect them to something deeper, faster than we ever have. Right. And to the point, and I will say this, the app that is just content, and you guys have led such a forward-thinking strategy on the purpose of your app. But the church app that just is content from the weekend is not sufficient to make known people connected people.
No, that's right. And I'll say this: the different aspects of the app provide different parts of spiritual formation. So let's just say Scripture. Yeah. So when we as a church read Scripture together, and then we can look at how Tyler reacts to that Scripture and responds to that, or makes a comment about that Scripture. It's a discipleship tool. This is a deep discipleship tool. And then when we go into prayer, and I'm praying for my friends and my small group and my connections by name and by prayer, that's a connection tool. I now know something more about you than I did a day ago, and I probably wouldn't outside of our normal routines because you hadn't texted me. Yeah. But you put the prayer in the app, and now I know it. And now I can call you and say, Tyler, I see you prayed this. Any way I can support you? And so we see that the deeper that we can get that ability to connect within the church on a daily basis, the more tightly our church is connected relationally. And that's the vision from Jesus.
Well, yeah, Darin, I mean, you bring up this idea in seminary and early church. It's like, how do we create that Acts 2 church? Like that was and it's like, well, I don't believe that there's a barrier to generosity, even amongst, believers when they know about it.
Right.
And what we've done as a church is we've centered everything on a Sunday to where the only opportunity I have to know about that is 1 hour a week if I run into you in a lobby and sit next to you, or whatever the case may be, where you're talking about an opportunity to know those needs greatly.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. We don't share this story broadly or publicly, but now we are. So, So I won't mention names, but we connected through one of our board members a few years ago with a guy that is close to just kind of rocket scientist, brilliant that you'll ever know. Guys that helped develop the U.S. missile security system, helped NASA in putting satellites in space, would take retailers like a Target and would work with them on Black Friday. So if they open at 5, by 6, they're adjusting their shelves based on what's working and what's not. And he does all this with paper and pencil. He's a brilliant guy. Just saw the earth guy. Southern, really heavy draw, but about as smart as we ever done. And what he does is this analysis that he looks at all these different variants that you can flip a switch and change. I can do this next week, and I turn it off, and it turn it off and on. And he'll look at like 20 variables at a time. Yeah. And he'll come back and he'll tell you, this is what impacts whatever you want. For businesses, it's bottom line or sales or whatever. For us, we asked him to look at all the things that we do within the service, outside the service, how we do offering setup, what impacts giving, what impacts people's giving. And, we talked about offering setup, language, when we did it in the service, how many songs before, all those things, all those variables. And he came back, and this guy, really touched, he's a believer, really through tears said, hey, we know what impacts your giving more than anything else. And you've just proven the power of prayer, because what he said impacts giving more than anything else is praying every day for at least 30 people in the app. Not 30 people for their giving, just 30 people who have asked for prayer in their app. And I believe, this is pure hypothesis, I can't tell you why that's true and why it's not true. I think pure hypothesis is people feel more connected to their church, and their money follows their heart.
Yeah. Well, and you said just a nod there, but I think your church matters from a spiritual implication very deeply, because we're seen as a society. There's, you talk about specific prayer apps, right? There's apps that guide you in that, and I think those are great. I mean, obviously to build the discipline of prayer, but I think there's a spiritual power and principle that comes when your church is praying together.
Right.
That's different.
Right. Yeah, it is different. And, Jesus said this. He talked about when right after he's telling people that they're going to lose their lives, they're going to lose their livelihood, they're going to lose all their belongings, and people leave. They run off, and then his brothers and sisters come. Your brothers and sisters. He says, you're going to have brothers and sisters. You're going to have hundreds of brothers and sisters out there. And he's reinforcing the people who stayed. Your church is your family. Your church is your connection. Your church is what's going to care for you and provide for you.
Sure.
Much more so than what you thought was your security blanket.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, my wife Nicole and I, we have never in our adult lives lived within a couple hours of family. That's the closest we've ever lived, right? The beautiful thing about that is it's forced us to not have a safety net. Mm-hmm. And the church and our small groups throughout the years have become this deep connection. And I actually feel like we have a richer connection to the church because of that.
Right.
And so it's just a very interesting thing. But I do think, let me ask the more controversial question. Obviously, you guys have the ability to link to YouVersion and derive, biblical reading experiences into YouVersion app, and you guys choose not to do that. From a former guy that worked really closely with YouVersion and some friendships there, tell me strategically why you guys have chosen Bible reading to remain in your app.
Yeah, I get this question a lot because there's Bible readings, and it's great. It's a great. I have it on my phone and I use it. Yeah. It's different than our scripture reading because for us, it's not that I can read scripture and I can read someone's count of what they believe this says or what it means to them. Yeah. It's my pastor, I can say to it. It's my friend. It's my family member. I can see how they're interacting with it, and that connects with me in a different way. And so I talked to other pastors around the country, and when we talked to them about the availability of this technology and apps, they say, well, we have YouTube and we have Facebook and we have YouVersion and we have, why not just tap into all those pieces?
Sure.
And we early on, it's kind of a social media deal. We're not necessarily just trying to get followers here. We're trying to get to the church. And so we're not looking, you talk about borrowed audience versus an owned audience.
That's a great term.
So, Facebook is a borrowed audience, and they can change their algorithms at any time and whatever. And we don't really have any control over that at all. For us, we want to own our audience because it's our church. We own our church. We collectively, as a church, own our connections to each other, and we want that in one place. And when we want our people in our community, when they're seeking answers, not go to Google, not go to YouTube, not go to wherever they would be going, but to go to their church.
Yeah. Well, I think even from a pastoral perspective, the call to shepherd your flock, right? Like that's not missed in the digital sense of like. To your point, like if we kick people out in our church expressions to borrowed environments, Facebook, YouTube, things like that, then there is an element of shepherding that we can't guide them back into.
Right. Yeah, and we still do social media. We still do Facebook, and we still do YouTube. Yeah, and that for us. That is reach. We're trying to reach new people there. For our people, for our church, we want them connected to our app.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Top of funnel is still top of funnel.
Right.
I don't think people are just probably driving by very often on this road and going, that building looks so inviting. I should come into it.
Yeah, if anything, it looks intimidating.
Sure, yeah. It's a large, dark building.
Right.
Which was interesting to pull up to.
Yeah. When we first built the building, we put up a sign on the side of it. It's not a hockey rink, because it looks like a hockey rink. So, it's a barrier because it's big, and a lot of people don't like to go into big things. That's why they look online. I mean, if you're invited up to a party, you're probably Googling that person and where they live and what their house looks like and who their friends are, and you're doing all your research. The same is true in the church. And so people's first entry point is not the app, it's the website. And then hopefully they'll see enough in there that they can take the next step and reach the next step.
Yeah. Felt needs through community.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. As we talk to a lot of churches throughout the United States, you do as well, and you have a significant influence across, I think, pastors. The barrier is really strategy and understanding strategy and being willing to adopt strategy. How are the ways that you guys at Crossroads move beyond that? It sounds like you started from a different place, but obviously you've got experience leading.
Well, we started in it's a felt need, and everybody's looking at different times at different felt needs. For us, we just finished our fourth campaign, financial campaign, and we were building buildings at the time, and our average cost is about $10,000 a seat when we build a building. And some people are a little higher than that, some people are a little lower than that, but that's where we were. And if we stayed on the same growth track that God had us on in 2015, we just looked forward and said, in the next 10 years, we're probably going to need $1 billion. And nobody wants to raise $1 billion, I can tell you that. And so nobody wants the weight of $1 billion campaign. And so then we start thinking about, well, how can we reach people? And I would tell you, the investment is big. When you think, when you put it in real dollars. But when you think about the impact that it can have, it's the most efficient ministry we have. We can reach more people. We do reach more people online than we do in our buildings. Some people are coming into the buildings and out of the buildings and into online and out of online. I don't like the term hybrid because it's weird. I would call them normal. That's what they do. And but we reach more people online than we do in a building, and we spend, I don't know, collectively, over the last 10 years, we probably, built a building, and we've reached 10 times the number we would otherwise.
Yeah.
And so it's more of an efficiency thing. And for us, it was not easy. This is a long route, and we went through years, and I was probably the one that was pushing as much as anybody, that we need to figure out how to do something different in the new world.
Yeah.
So there would be times when Brian Tome, our senior pastor, would come to me and say, I know we aligned on this. Just tell me why again. And I'm not criticizing it. It's just people go back to what they're used to.
Yeah.
And so then when COVID hit, it became a real felt need for people on how do they reach the people when they couldn't get into buildings. And now everybody's shifting back, and they want to go back to the normal, and they're forgetting that it's not a place where you can have service. It's a place where your church can grow. And so to get through that growth curve is hard as a leadership team sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you said, it's a significant investment.
Yeah.
But it's really wise and I forget your wording on, but it's a cheap investment for return.
It's efficient. Yeah.
Efficient. That was the word.
Multi-site is. I mean, when you build a building and you eventually you decide to go multi-site, multi-site is the most inefficient way to build a church, because you're building another church, another staff, another team, and this is you got one team that can reach thousands, in different ways. It's not the same.
It's different.
It is different. I'm not anti-building. We are building buildings right now. We have 2 that are building right now, and it's as important as buildings are. The tools that enhance the building experience and the church experience are just as important.
Well, and you bring up a good point. I saw a podcast that Kyle Ranson did, and we talked about this, like the metrics or the goalpost of winning look different digitally than they do in person. And so we've seen some places where clients, they just stumble because they're trying to apply the same metrics to a digital expression. As there. Like, well, how many people? What was the reach? What was the and it's like you guys have different metrics for winning on that.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, we probably erred on the other side of that, where some churches will get views as their metric. When we first launched, we would say anybody who stayed with us at least 50 minutes out of our 65-minute service or 60-minute service, and eventually you keep raising the bar, and you're going to bump your head on the bar, and we don't hold that standard to people in the building. People come in late and they leave early, and we count them. I guarantee you we count them. And we've eventually moved off of just counting heads, and we have our insights team, our research team in here did a study a few years ago about what are the things that will impact one's spiritual growth over time. And so we have what we call the 7 proven practices. And the 7 proven practices of spiritual growth is what we measure. And so we call it, it's our engagement wig. And so any one person who engages in any of the 7 practices, unique person monthly, we count as they engage with our church. So that includes online, and that includes in building. That includes things like giving and serving and community and baptism. And so those are the things that we add into that. And so when we started measuring that, what we recognized is our church is bigger than we think. Our impact is bigger than we think. And so we have, right now, we have in-building attendance around 20,000 a week, and we have probably about that, with online. And we'll have 55 or 60,000 that we would be doing any of these 7 proven practices. And so they're just doing them at different times and
in
different
places.
ways.
Yeah.
And so then you start thinking about impact more so than attendance.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That tracks with what we're seeing on churches that are leaning into strategy similarly, right? Where, especially what you said, like my weekend attendance is actually less than my maybe app usage or app, registered users for the week.
Right.
And like watching from the outside in, it's kind of fun to watch a pastor wrestle with that.
Right. It's fun and it's not fun, especially when you're on the inside of it and you keep beating your head up against the same wall. But
sure,
what we've seen is everybody's seeing fewer and fewer frequency of attendance every month.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the same thing. What we're also seeing is the higher your engagement level, the higher your level in any of these 7 proven practices, especially if you start laying them on top of each other. Mm-hmm. Somebody who does 3 or 4 of these 7 proven practices, what we see is actually increased frequency of attendance, not decreased. Everybody's worried about when I put things online, are people just going to, we used to call it Crossroads underwear. So are you going to watch Crossroads in your underwear at home? And what we're seeing now is the more you get people engaged the church on a regular basis, the more you have them in your building too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That tracks. If you were to talk to or tell pastors that, hey, this is a step you should take, what would be the convincing thing you would say to them if they weren't fully bought in?
Usually, and I'm usually interacting with executive pastors, sometimes senior leaders, and usually what I do is I just pull out my app, and I'll just show the interaction with my community in real time, and they're like, "Wait, what? What? You just prayed for your wife and?" She knows that, and I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. And I just show the app. Then I remind them, hey, just so you know, like half our church is our new people in our church are coming in this way, and that's usually enough to get people interested. And the question is, how do you get them bought in enough to fully not only count the cost, but absorb the cost? And it's not just financial expense, although it can be significant. It's more of like relational expense. It's just more of gosh, you feel like you have the same conversation over and over and over and over again, and it's the invisible part of your church. People, especially senior pastors, love to stand in a pulpit or stand on a stage and see their people. And in this particular case, they can't see their people, but their people are real, and those people.
They dart one-on-one to them. Yeah.
Yes, they see them. Yeah. And they know them, and they see them as their pastor. There's no question.
Yeah, which is actually a really great benefit, but it is a different toll.
So usually it's I think churches fail, particularly in the digital realm, not because of poor strategy, but because of poor alignment. And so you have leadership teams in different places with different commitment levels, and it's hard to fight through it.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a pretty classic church story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sadly enough, and the ability to get the right people around the table around the right goal. Yeah. With the right resources. Right. Is really the key.
Yeah. And the other place that I see people make mistakes, and we did too. I mean, this is that we were not only on the cutting edge, we were on the bleeding edge. So it was hard. But they'll come and say, "Hey, I want an app." Well, why do you want an app? What do you want that app to do? How do you want that app to interact with your church? How is it going to integrate into the rest of the tools of your church? And without thinking those things through, they'll take the shortcut on the app, and then they'll look at their digital ministry and say, "Well, it's not working." It's not working because you wanted a Mercedes and you bought a Prius.
Well, and I mean, Darin, to exact point. I do believe that we have a lot of failed strategies in the church that are on the backs of ineffective technology leaders.
Yeah.
And senior pastors have trusted ineffective leaders to bring them solutions, and they've just failed at it.
Yeah.
And
executive pastors, me for one. I mean, we were having the conversation earlier. I don't know this technology. I don't understand when my digital people and start talking about the next whiz bang thing. I'm like, I don't know, but I know I got the right people in the room.
Yeah,
and I trust them.
Yeah,
and I can see the impact of it. And years and years and years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, one of my our audio people came and said, "Hey, I need a new soundboard." And at the time, it was, $250,000, a big expense.
Yeah.
And I went to my senior pastor, Brian, and I'm like, I don't understand soundboards. I don't understand. You can put in a new soundboard. I can't tell the difference. And so it's not busted. It's still working. So how do I know? And Brian said, sometimes you just got to trust your people. And I think the same is true in the digital realm. And we as senior leaders, we don't have to know everything, but we have to trust our people. And that's part of what we're doing.
You have to hire good people to trust.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, boy. Yeah.
You stumbled on that one.
Yeah, that's another one where I tell people when they start going down the digital train, take your strongest spiritual leader, your strongest team leader, take your strongest person and put them on digital. They don't have to understand digital. You don't want to take your strongest IT person and put them on digital. You want to put your strongest leader, pastor on digital, because then they'll find a way to use the technology for the purpose of discipleship as opposed to just building the next tool.
I promise I didn't pay Darin to say that. As someone that has no technology background or experience, that found myself leading technology in a local church setting because it was like, as a pastor, I need this to work really well for me.
Right. And that's one of the costs, because whoever that person is on your team, they're doing real work now.
Yeah.
They're doing really important things. I remember I was talking to one church out on the East Coast at one point, and the senior leader is like, who do I need to put on this team? And I'm like, you need to put your executive pastor to lead this team. Yeah. And it's hard for an executive pastor to say, gosh, I don't know anything about this, or am I taking a step back, or am I taking? I mean, it's like if you do this right, you're actually taking a step forward as a church. Yeah. And all the water rises.
Everything rises. Yeah. So, Darin, you've been a great wealth of wisdom, whether you acknowledge that yourself or not. So, thank you for investing today and spending time with us.
You're welcome.
And thank you guys for listening in. We'll actually have more conversations in the future with Darin. I'm going to put him on the spot and promise that for you guys. But also, we'll be sure, if any of you want to connect with him further, we'll filter that and make sure that you guys get connected with him. He does serve churches all across the United States and has a method and a formulation to do that. And so we thank you for your investment today.
Welcome.
In Apollos and to helping us talk about strategy.
Great.
Thank you.